Okay, this is also Hanukkah, you know.
Hanukkah?
Or Chanukah is the correct pronunciation. You all know what Hanukkah celebrates, right? In 165 BC, I used to think that it came from the word Chana, which is Hannah in English, and Anna too, which means light, because there's a Feast of Lights. But like with many other words, there's confusion about it. Supposedly it means dedication. It refers to the rededication of the temple in Jerusalem in the year 165 BC by Judah Maccabee. You've heard of them, the Maccabees soccer team. And it had been profaned by the Greeks.
The beer, Maccabee beer.
Right. The Greeks came in. It's an area that gets trampled periodically by a lot of different peoples. And I used to, you sort of think that Palestine and Israel, whatever you want to call it, is, or at least was, a homogeneous place. But that's not true at all. There are always many nationalities living there, not only the Jews. After the Empire of Alexander broke up, the Seleucid Greeks took over Palestine, and they wanted to Hellenize it, make it into a kind of Greek place. They were also called Seleucids, Spartans, Hellenes, Lacedaemonians, and Greeks. And the inhabitants were called different names too in this period. They were called Arabs, Nabateans, Philistines, Idumeans, and other nationalities. Now, how did the Greeks want to change the Jews, Hellenize them? I'm going to tell you. First,
how was that?
First, they wanted to get rid of circumcision. Which, the Jews, well, you could actually, in a way, but that's for another program. Because the original circumcision was only, it's funny you should ask, was only a clip off the end, just the little part that hangs.
A little off the top, you mean?
Yeah, the foreskin that hangs over. And actually, during this very period, Jewish boys became enamored of the Greek culture, which was a world culture, or I think a superior culture in terms of what we think today. So the Jews started to imitate the Greeks. They took Greek names like American Jews take American names. Irving is not a Jewish name.
It's a Greek name?
No, it was English, but by now, no self-respecting goy will name his kid Irving. But anyway, so one of the things the Greeks set up were these health clubs. They called them gymnasiums, and Olympics. They had Olympics, and the Jews wanted to take part in that. And when they did take part in it, and the rest of the population looked at them, their peenies looked funny, so they laughed at them, ha 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 ha. And
you
so
mean their weenies, don't you?
the kosher weenie.
That must have been very humiliating.
It was humiliating. So they went to Alexandria, which was a great Jewish city, had 1 million people at this period, and some doctor devised a little treatment called fulguration, and it really fogged them up. You poured an acid on the part of your foreskin that was still there, and then it blossomed out and it looked supposedly normal. So the rabbis got sore at that, and it's only from that period that they made the complete cut. The complete cut. It's a very funny story. All right, so now what is this? Now wait a while. How much time do we have? So what is the spiritual aspect? This was, we're always told in the Jewish religion.
What is the spiritual aspect
of circumcision? Well, it's a sacrifice. You give this up for God, and you give up your animality. It keeps your cock in place. You aren't a wild sexual being. So I have two.
Didn't they figure out after a few years that didn't really work?
Well, they still haven't figured it out.
Still a lot of
all right, but
people
I think that if that if cutting off the end is really spiritual, think of how good it would be if you... Can we get a close-up? You see what the guy's offering? The whole thing.
Is that enough?
That would be even more spiritual, don't you think?
I think the whole bottom part with the legs would be good too.
Yeah, well, they do that in certain
Yeah,
places.
well, if you got the balls enough to do it.
And, and as for you feminist Orthodox women, I think you should demand an equal cut of the pie and really come all out for clitoral circumcision, which is done, or maybe extirpation if that isn't it. Yeah, I know, but they're not Jewish. But maybe they are. Maybe they are. Then there's always infibulation, sewing up the vagina, or if you don't go for this whole thing of just cutting off the tip, you could do subincision. You know, they do that. You cut the whole bottom, the urethra, so you can urinate like a woman. It's really Cunis envy.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.
Okay, so that the other thing they did that defiled the temple was to sacrifice pigs in the altar instead of sacrificing other animals.
Those boars.
So how come they couldn't think they couldn't think of being vegetarians? Then the health clubs we mentioned, they used to rip up Torahs. Oh yeah. Now here's my comment on the pigs here. See the vegetarian comment. I'll have an order of ham and eggs. What do you have, Herb? I don't know yet, but it ain't gonna be pig's ass and avian ova. Oh, and you weren't allowed to have any idols except Jewish generals. No. Basically, they wanted to substitute Zeus, their local god, for Jehovah, the Jews' local god. And this is just another. Not that the Greeks were so wonderful. See, here's an example of what the Greeks brought. Great moments in the history of sport. The Spartans invent football. You can see what they're playing with.
I thought the
That's
Texans
it.
invented football.
No, that's a lie. Okay, so much for that. Now, so the Hanukkah celebrates a military victory anyway, and we're trying to get away from that. There is, however, there are heroes in
Oh,
Israel,
yeah, some pumpkin.
and one of them. No, I can't eat now.
All right.
One of them is
We'll pass out to the
Mordechai Vanunu.
crew.
I can't.
You know, I heard Ambassador Netanyahu of Israel on the
I hear he really is a Yahoo though.
on the TV. He was on with Larry King, and Larry King, being not a totally incompetent journalist, asked him if Israel, we're discussing the Mideast, if Israel has, he was complaining about, he was complaining about Iraq's chemical weapons. Not that Iraq is so lovely, but. And he was asked by Larry King whether didn't Israel have about 150 atomic weapons, and he said no. And he said two things. First, he said Israel will not be the first to use atomic weapons in the Middle East. And then he was asked specifically, but does Israel have atomic weapons? And he said no. And I figured it out I remember during the Vietnam War, Cabot Lodge, who was ambassador to Vietnam, was asked, was he going to resign the ambassadorship? He said no. Next week, his resignation was announced, and the reporter said, but you told us you weren't going to resign. And his answer was, well, when you asked me that, I had already resigned. So this is how I figure, Ambassador Netanyahu figured it out. The Israelis have 150 bombs set to go, but they haven't set the warhead, so technically, which would take maybe 5 or 10 minutes, so technically these are not weapons. All right, now, one of the ways it was proven, the best way I think, that it was proven that Israel had 100 to 200 atomic weapons was when Mordechai Vanunu an Israeli nuclear technician who, after many years working at the government's secret bomb factory in Dimona, that's the southern desert, he took a course in philosophy, ethics at Beersheba University. He quit his job, and then he'd taken some photographs before he quit. In an interview to the London Observer, he exposed to the whole world the fact that Israel now had over 100 weapons ready to go. He was in London at the time, and he was seduced. This is an incredibly dramatic and sentimental story. He was seduced from London to Rome by a blonde Jewish-American, a Mossad agent who just happened to bump into him. He was drugged there in Rome, in her sister's apartment. He was dragged aboard an Israeli freighter, kidnapped back to the Promised Land. And in a completely secret trial, he was sentenced to 18 years, an 8x4, 24-hour-a-day lighted isolation cell in Ashkelon prison, where he now remains. So this is a song about, you can keep your Maccabees, you know, for the ratio. Oh, by the way, when the Jews finally got their independence in this struggle, over the next 100 years, they proceeded to forcibly Judaize many tribes in the south of Israel, in the west of Israel, and the east of Israel. Well, I get, you know, turnabout is fair play. That is, they made them into Jews, made them adopt the Jewish religion. And I don't know quite how they did it, but I doubt if it was all done in a very literary manner. They were wars with those tribes. The Vanunu Defense Committee is at number 4 Plimpton Avenue, P-O-Y-M-P-T-O-N Avenue, London, NW6, in England. I'll give that again at the end of the song. We're going to do 3 songs here. We're going to celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah. And let's see, I have to explain some. This is the Ballad of Mordecai Vanunu, and Dimona was the town where they called it a textile factory. The cedars are what the temple was, the wood in the temple. You all know what the temple is. Halevi's eagle. Mossad is the organization that taught the CIA how to work. Halevi's eagle, Yehuda Halevi was a early Spanish Zionist, a fine poet. And the eagle is what he imagined he would fly back from Spain on in the 12th century. He never got there. He died on the way. Adolf Eichmann, you all know him. He's the German George Bush. No. Who would be an American comparable to him?
Who ran Teddy Roosevelt?
Yeah, well, Americans aren't as orderly as the Germans. That's true. Rachmanis means pity. Okay. He worked 10 years, Dimona's desert, to bring the desert to the land, to make the cedars burn to ashes, to let the temple sink to sand. He thought about stones in the Bible. He told about bombs in the rock. Mossad caged him in Halevi's eagle, and then they threw away the lock. He dreamed about Adolf Eichmann. He who obeys is like the rest, who saves one life, oh Jew or Arab, who saves one soul, dwells with the blessed. They called him mad, they called him venal, they called him traitor, apostate, but all he did was call Rachmanis. All he did, defy the state. We need more Jews like like Mord Vanunu. We need more Arabs search their heart. Oh people, will you be mere down slaves? Or workers, will you be upstarts? We need more brothers like Chai Vanunu. We need more sisters search their heart. Or workers, will you be mere down slaves? Or people, will you be upstarts?
We're thinking about you, Mark.
Okay, the address once more. The Vanunu Defense Committee is at number 4 Plimpton Avenue, P-L-Y-M-P-T-O-N, number 4, London, England, NW 6. Write them for more information. This next is a sing-along. Stephen's going to do the honors. We're going to honor Christmas, too. Yeah, no, here. If you could hold this up. And